It's Tuesday, December 6th, and this is The Big Story. I'm Chao Suen. Subscribe to the Straits Times channel to stay up to date with our live news updates. Now we begin with the headlines. From next Monday, December 12th, the bivalent PFIZER-BIONTECH COVID-19 vaccine will be rolled out to individuals aged 12 years and above. The bivalent vaccine will be available as the primary vaccination series and booster vaccination, in place of the current monovalent vaccine. The bivalent Moderna Spikevax vaccine continues to be available for persons aged 18 years and above. Meanwhile, the Health Ministry has also accepted the Expert Committee on COVID-19 Vaccinations recommendation that the PFIZER-BIONTECH vaccine may be used for the primary vaccination series for children aged 6 months to 4 years. The series consists of 3 doses, each given 8 weeks apart. Details on the rollout will be announced at a later date. Now, a global study involving patients from Singapore has shown that for the first time, a drug can slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease. It is not a cure, but it is potentially game-changing, as until now, the drugs available only treat the symptoms rather than the underlying cause. For the trial, 13 patients from National University Hospital's Memory Clinic were included among the 1,795 participants with early Alzheimer's disease. The drug, called lecanemab, is an antibody treatment that removes clumps of protein called amyloid from patients' brains. Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia, affecting 1 in 10 individuals aged above 60 here. The disease destroys a person's memory, thinking skills, and eventually the ability to perform everyday tasks. Associate Professor Christopher Chen, visiting consultant in the Department of Psychological Medicine at NUH, joins us now. Thanks for joining us, Prof. Chen. So the study has made headlines around the world. Can you tell us more about this experimental drug and how patients here fared during the trial? Any cases of adverse side effects?
Thank you very much for inviting me to join you. Yes, it's a very exciting time for Alzheimer's disease. The drug we're talking about is called lecanemab. It's a monoclonal antibody that targets an early form of the abnormal protein called amyloid. And by doing so, it interferes with the formation of amyloid plaques, which are a very important hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. So together with colleagues from all around the world, a large phase 3 double-blind randomized controlled trial called Clarity AD was performed. And this was presented just last week at the 15th Clinical Trials on Alzheimer's Disease conference in San Francisco. And the findings were also published in the New England Journal of Medicine, which is a very prestigious journal, last week too. In summary, 1,795 patients were randomly assigned to either an intravenous infusion of lecanemab or placebo every 2 weeks for 18 months. And amongst these patients were 13 from the NUH Memory Clinic. All these patients had to have amyloid detected in their brain, either through a positron emission tomography scan or through CSF examination. Now, during the trial, cognition and functional performance were assessed in several areas: memory, orientation, judgment problem solving, community affairs, homes and hobbies, and personal care. And we used a scale called the CDR sum of boxes to assess this. And a higher score represents worse cognition or functioning. The patients had an approximate level of 3.2 on this score, which is consistent with early Alzheimer's disease. And after 18 months, the scores differed between the lecanemab and the placebo group by 0.45, which was highly statistically significant and clearly showed a slowing in the decline in cognition and function over the study period. Furthermore, a smaller sub-study of about 700 subjects showed that amyloid was greatly reduced in the brains of people with the lecanemab group. The majority actually had brain scans which returned to normal. Now, you ask about side effects. Overall, the trial showed expected amount of side effects, but specifically of the 13 patients in NUH, 1 had an infusion reaction, which was fever, and it resolved. 6 had microhemorrhages in the brain scan, but all were asymptomatic, sorry. And 2 had ARIA-E, which is edema of the brain, again, all asymptomatic.
So you and your team, Professor, played a critical role in this breakthrough study. What, in your view, is the next step? Are further trials needed to determine its longer-term effects?
Yes, thank you. Indeed, further trials are needed. And currently, there is something called an open-label extension study in Clarity AD participants, precisely in order to study longer-term benefits and safety. But I think most interestingly, there's also an ongoing study of lecanemab in those who are pre-symptomatic with Alzheimer's disease. And in fact, we are conducting this trial in NUH right now. And in the future, I think there is promise of having trials of what we call combination therapies. In other words, patients put not just an anti-amyloid treatment, but perhaps other treatments such as anti-tau, anti-inflammatory, or pro-synaptic drugs.
So Alzheimer's disease affects about 1 in 10 persons above 60 in Singapore. That seems to be quite a critical number. Do you think it can be prevented? And what are the treatment options that are available right now?
Well, I certainly hope that Alzheimer's disease can be prevented because it is such a scourge. And I think that there are many studies currently being undertaken to do exactly that. One study that we are doing in Singapore is called the SINGER study. This is a multiple lifestyle intervention trial to see whether if we intervene in terms of exercise, in terms of diet, in terms of cognitive training, and in terms of better vascular risk factor management, perhaps we can also prevent dementia. In terms of treatment options, well, we have several types of drugs that we can offer patients with mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease. These are symptomatic treatments rather than disease-modifying treatments and include drugs such as acetylcholinesterase inhibitors. Furthermore, patients who have behavioral and psychiatric symptoms can also be given appropriate treatments with antipsychotics or antidepressants, anti-anxiety agents. But these are only drug therapies. Non-drug therapies for patients with cognitive impairment or dementia include daycare activities, include exercise, include better in social engagement. So I think there's many things that we can do to try and prevent and also to treat dementia right now.
It is very hopeful to hear that there are options out there, especially as Singapore and the world continues to see an aging population. Thank you so much for your time, Professor Chen. Associate Professor Christopher Chen, visiting consultant in the Department of Psychological Medicine at NUH. And in other news, Singapore seems to have quite the appetite for betting games. A total of $9.2 billion was spent betting on games such as soccer, 4D and Toto in the tote boards last financial year. This is a spike of about 40% from the year before and the largest sum placed on these games in the past decade. The tote board said the sums wagered on lotteries and sports in the financial year that ended in March 2022 had increased after Singapore started lifting COVID-19 restrictions. Now, Asia's dream run at the World Cup has ended at the knockout stages. Japan's match against Croatia resulted in a stalemate and the first penalty shootout of the tournament. Lady Luck, however, was not with the Japanese, as Croatia's keeper saved 3 penalties, sending his nation into the next round. In last night's other game, Neymar's return provided Brazil with the boost they needed as they cruised to a 4-1 victory over South Korea. Another 2 spots in the quarterfinals have been confirmed after yesterday's matches. Croatia and Brazil will now battle each other on Friday, with the winner having to face the winner of the match between Netherlands and Argentina in the semi-finals. More action tonight as 4 more nations vie for the last 2 spots in the quarterfinals. Morocco will be hoping to cause a huge upset as they go up against tournament favourites Spain. Meanwhile, Portugal will face Switzerland to secure their spot in the next round. And those are our top stories for today. Visit straitstimes.com for more news and our YouTube channel for more videos. Subscribe by hitting the red button below. I'm Chao Suen, and I'll see you tomorrow on The Big Story.